Agradecemos a su excelencia por su presencia y palabras de apertura a este segundo día de foro. Y continuamos con el primer panel del día, la experiencia coreana de innovación en la gestión pública. Para esto tenemos la moderación del doctor Alexander López Ramírez, director del Instituto Centroamericano de Administración Pública. Invitamos a los panelistas a pasar adelante. Doctor Kim Hyun-jun, Director of the International Cooperation Division, Ministry of the Interior and Safety. Doctora Kim Nam-ok, Deputy Director of Government Ethics Policy Division, Ministry of Personnel Management. Dr. Shin Kim, Senior Research Fellow, the Korean Institute of Public Administration. Agradecemos la participación de los panelistas y llamamos al honorable señor David Montenegro para que nos acompañe más adelante.
Muy buenos días, tengan todos y todas. De nuevo, tal y como señalaba el día de ayer, en la mañana, en la jornada de inauguración, de nuevo sumamente complacido de ver el entusiasmo con que ustedes han respondido a la convocatoria al evento. Es, sin lugar a dudas, una señal inequívoca de la importancia del tema y del interés que todos ustedes le dan al mismo, es decir, al tema de innovación dentro del ejercicio de la función pública. Yo quisiera, en primer lugar, desde luego, darles la más cordial bienvenida a el embajador de la República de Corea en Panamá, quien ha sido un verdadero impulsor para que este proceso que hoy culminamos con un panel dedicado a la experiencia coreana sea posible. Igualmente a los dos representantes del gobierno coreano, tanto del Ministerio del Interior como del Ministerio de Administración del Personal, y al profesor del Instituto Nacional de Administración Pública de Corea. A manera de introducción, simplemente quisiera señalar responder a la pregunta ¿por qué Corea? Y creo que la respuesta es muy directa, es relativamente fácil. Corea es prácticamente el país número 1 en innovación en el mundo. De acuerdo al indicador que tenemos del Bloomberg, básicamente por 5 años consecutivos Corea ha sido rankeado el país número 1 en innovación en el mundo. Eso le ha permitido prácticamente pasar de ser un país relativamente pobre a ser una de las economías más desarrolladas del mundo. Y la explicación de por qué esa transformación de la República de Corea de ser un país relativamente pobre a ser una de las economías más desarrolladas radica básicamente en una palabra, y esa palabra es innovación, básicamente impulsada por un proceso de investigación y desarrollo. Corea es el país en el mundo que prácticamente invierte más en investigación y desarrollo. Estamos hablando de más del 4% del GDP o del Producto Nacional Bruto dedicado al tema de la investigación. Y eso definitivamente no es poca cosa y un poco refuerza la tesis que señalaba yo el día de ayer, que no podemos esperar desarrollo si no hay investigación. Así que, más que complacido, desde luego la experiencia coreana es muy importante porque además hay una estrategia nacional de innovación, hay un índice gubernamental de innovación y todo eso son de alguna manera prácticas y llamémosle en este caso buenas prácticas que merecen ser compartidas. Así que de verdad bienvenidos. I am very pleased to have 3 speakers from Korea. So, welcome. And thank you very much for making this possible, for traveling for quite many hours. And thank you very much for sharing the experience with the Central American countries. And we hope that your stay in Panama will be fine. I know that yesterday you visited the Panama Canal. That was a good experience for you. So thank you once again for making this possible. And thank you very much, Ambassador. I mean, it has been a really pleasure to work with you. And we hope that this is the first step in the way to several things that we can develop together. I mean, between the Korean government and the Central American countries. Thank you very much. So you are going to have 20 minutes for each of you. And then after your presentation, we will have like 15, 20 minutes for questions and comments. That's more or less the standard, okay? So, para iniciar con el primer panelista, tenemos al doctor Woong Joe Ko, que presentará la experiencia coreana en términos de innovación gubernamental en Corea. El doctor es el director, bueno, viene del Ministerio del Interior y Seguridad y, como señalaba, nos hará la presentación sobre la innovación gubernamental en Corea. So, feel free, I mean, you can do it here or you can use another microphone. It's up to you.
To see the presentation, I think I need to go up to the podium. Yeah, in here we cannot see very well the screen. So. Buenos dias. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I'm Woong Joe Ko, Director of International Cooperation from the Ministry of the Interior and Safety of Korea. This is my great honor and pleasure to be here today to talk about the government innovation of Korea. And I also thank you for the government of Panama, Ministerio de la Presidencia, and Instituto Centroamericano Administración Pública. So I have been in the government of Korea for the last 19 years, and most of my career was in the current ministry. So I have seen lots of movements and actions for the innovation. So some of my presentation may be based on my personal experience. Let me just give you a brief explanation about what the Ministry of the Interior and Safety is doing regarding the government innovation. We have a division called Innovation Planning, where they make a draft plan and innovation agendas, and they also do monitoring of the progress of each ministry in terms of innovation. And those activities are finally confirmed in the special organization, which I will mention later. My presentation today is divided into two parts. So the first is about the past, how we did it. And the second part is about the present, the current picture of government innovation. Nowadays, many people and many organizations emphasize public government innovation. In Korean government, as far as I remember, the term of innovation has been widely used since 2003, when the new government came into power. Of course, before that, we had similar activities and programs to renovate, to change the working structure of the government. But at that time, we didn't use the term of innovation. We were more familiar with the term of reform. But now the innovation is more popular. So what's the difference between those two terms? To give you a simple, better understanding, I can take a simple example. When Steve Jobs first introduced the iPhone, many people thought that, and it was like a symbol of innovation. But as the new models of generation are released, people start to think that lacked the elements of innovation. Then what is the innovation? What's the definition of innovation? There will be many different definitions, but in my view, the important elements of innovation is a big change beyond our expectation. And it continues to improve. And the effects of innovation spreads over the neighboring industries and neighboring fields. So the Korean government start to use the term of innovation to show its will to make a more radical and fundamental changes in the working mechanism. When you are interested in the experience of Korea, I think the number one part you want to hear about is how we did it. So here I selected 4 items. First, normally we set up a new special organization, usually in the form of committee on top, which means directly under the president. They set up the vision of innovation and also each many agenda. They also did monitoring, and as I mentioned, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety do the base works for that. And the committee finally makes the decision. And we also have President's Office, which is called Blue House in Korea. They have always played as a role of controller and coordinator of innovation. And as a third group, we have some powerful ministries. It's basically the ministry's level authority is the same, but in reality, there is some kind of power structure. So they are Ministry of the Interior and Safety, and Ministry of Strategy and Finance, and Ministry of Personnel Management. They have specific influence over all other ministries. For the MOIS, they have the control over the organizational size of the other ministries. And as you know, the Ministry of Strategy and Finance will have the influence over the amount of budget, and Ministry of Personnel Management can control the size of manpower in each ministry. So when these 3 ministries guide and lead the innovation, the other ministries cannot help following the directions. And we also have a systematic monitoring system, which is based on the mandatory reporting and checkups. Through this structure of management of innovation, I think we have achieved something, although I cannot say it's been a success. First, we have achieved the decentralization and devolution. Traditionally, Korea was a country of very high centralization, but now we are more decentralized, and the decentralization is still going on. And more information and data owned by government are open to public, and the cooperation between the different ministries in the government became more common and effective. So these changes helped the government innovation to be successful, workable, and establish the world-class digital government, and improving the quality of public services. Here I present some enabling factors that helped our government innovation. Institutionally, we have a national agenda when every new government came into office. So these national agenda, sometimes they have about hundreds of agendas, sometimes less than that. And many of them are related to the presidential election pledges. And many of them are then related to the government innovation. And the resources, especially financial resources, are allocated to the project, which is related to, again, government innovation. And we have a government performance evaluation system since 1960s, I think. And we included the government innovation as an element to be evaluated in this system. For the structural dimension, I would like to change the term to behavioral dimension because I think it's more appropriate. So our president usually have a very high interest in government innovation and encourages civil servants and people to pursue the innovation. And also the powerful organizations that I mentioned, they join the movement. And there are also environmental elements. I'm not sure whether you are aware of it, but I think the Koreans have generally very high expectations for the government and government services. And the politicians and ministers are very sensitive to their needs. So in many cases, our ministers want to show that they are making innovations workable and they are bringing changes to the government. So this provides a very favorable environment to push for the innovation. For the authoritarian government, it applies to the period until 1980s, when there was when the political power didn't have enough democratic legitimacy. So they try to compensate it by boosting the economy and national development. Up until now, I have briefly talked about the past experience of Korean government innovation. Frankly speaking, I cannot assure you that we made a success yet. But I can say that we made an improvement, and we are still, the improvement is still going on. And this button. And we may ask a question. Does Korea still need government innovation? What do you think? The answer probably yes, but why? As you may know, Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world until the 1960s. But we have achieved remarkable economic and democratic development. sorry, I'm not. But in the government sector, we are lagging behind. We have much to improve, as indicated by those indexes publicized by OECD. Our new President Moon said that the aim of government innovation is to bring the government that exists for the people and establish the service culture, civil service culture that truly serves the people. With that in mind, we designed a new framework of government innovation, and let's take a look. The vision of our new government innovation is to realize the government by the people, where the ownership of government is in the people. And this is supported by 3 strategies, which are participation and cooperation, trusted government, and social value orientation. There is 3 different points in current government innovation. It keeps moving. There are 3 different points, and the first is that in current government, the innovation is with people. It means that there are more participation from the people in the planning and monitoring process as well. And second, the process is not top-down anymore. It is autonomous and bottom-up. And the focus of innovation is on the quality of life rather than the internal process of administration. This is the survey results with the people done March this year. More than 2,000 people participated in the survey. This is a summary that what the people want regarding the government innovation, and it is being reflected incorporated in the planning of government innovation. So I don't have much time left, but I think I did the most important part already. Yeah. So I will go very quick. Yeah. I wanted to show more in detail about the 3 different points one by one. So this is the first one. We will have more innovation. Innovation with the people with much more participation. And the second point is that we will reflect the opinions and suggestions of the people, and we developed a plan with the discussions of many civil servants in many different levels and different areas. Through the process, we encouraged the civil servants to participate in the process and had a discussion with local governments and local people as well to make the innovation more effective. I'll skip this. And we will try to invest more resources in the projects linked to social value. And we will also try to change the internal management of government. Yeah. And about that one, we have a few initiatives. And I think Ms. Kim later will have give you more explanation on that. And these are the new elements of evaluation of government innovation. The evaluation system has been a very effective instrument to push forward the evaluation efforts of each ministry. But actually, the ministries maybe doesn't like to be evaluated. Actually, nobody likes to be evaluated. But it is very effective, and I think it's a necessary evil in the make the innovation possible. This shows how the government will change through the innovation. We have, I displayed 3 indicators that I mentioned earlier. We have specific targets for that. It's very challenging, but I hope we can achieve it. This shows that how the life will change. People's life will change through the innovation. We'll have more safer country, and there will be more participation. There will be more social welfare. And this shows how the Korean civil service will change. Also for that, I think Ms. Kim later will give you more explanation on that. And finally, this is the logo of symbolizing our innovation efforts. It's in Korean letter. It says "Our better government in Korea." And we have a slogan in small letter in upper side. It says government innovation for better future for people. So thank you. This is the end of my presentation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, and especially thank you very much for, in 20 minutes, explaining the transition of the Korean economy, from the past to the present. I mean, making that in 20 minutes, that's amazing. Ahora tenemos la presentación de la doctora Ock Kim, que es la directora adjunta de la División de Políticas de Éticas Gubernamentales del Ministerio de la Administración del Personal. Y creo que va a ser una presentación de muchísima relevancia para todos nosotros, ya que va a presentar los casos de innovación del sistema de gestión de personal en el gobierno coreano, que es uno de los grandes retos, evidentemente, que tenemos todas las administraciones públicas en la región del sistema de la integración centroamericana. Así que, welcome, the floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ock Kim, Deputy Director of Government Ethics Policy Division of the Ministry of Personnel Management. I'm very pleased and honored to have an opportunity to share the innovation cases of personnel management policies of the South Korean government here in Panama. My presentation includes 2 parts. First, the brief overview of the Ministry of Personnel Management, then personnel management innovation cases. From now, I'm going to give you the brief overview of the Ministry of Personnel Management. The Ministry of Personnel Management is a central agency of the Republic of Korean government, which takes charge of setting and implementing a variety of both personal policies, human resource development, remuneration, welfare, and pension programs for public officials. Our vision is to build the Republic of Korea with equal opportunity, fair process, and just results. This slide shows you the history of the Ministry of Personnel Management. As you can see in this slide, the ministry, which takes full charge of the public personnel management, was launched in 1999. With several government organization reform, the current Ministry of Personnel Management was established in 2014. This is the organization chart of the Ministry of Personnel Management. There are 5 bureaus and 2 affiliated organizations, which are the National Human Resource Development Institute and the Appeals Commission. The Ministry of Personnel Management main functions are recruitment based on just and fair procedures, human resource development, plan and spread innovative personnel management policies, performance management, and ethics of public officials. For your understanding of my presentation, I want to share the classification of civil servants in the South Korean government. The total number of civil servants of the South Korea is approximately 1 million. In the central government, there are over 600,000 civil servants, but among them, the teachers and policy occupy most part, so that the general officials in the central government are about 100,000. The Ministry of Personnel Management mainly builds the personnel management policies for these general officials. This slide shows you the grade system of general officials in the South Korean government. We have 9 grade system. Grade 9 is the lowest level. Since 2006, grade 1 to 2, which are positions of Deputy Minister and Director General, combined to the Senior Civil Service. The Senior Civil Service system is a strategic HR system through performance-oriented human resource management. By separating deputy ministers and bureau directors who assumed key roles in policymaking from general staff, the government makes good use of them in the right place at the right time and strengthens openness and competition in an effort to be a better government. Now I'm going to share the recent public personnel management innovation cases in the South Korean government. I want to introduce 6 cases. First, balanced personnel management. Second, recommended recruitment by the people. Third, competency assessment in promotion. Fourth, specialist public official system. Fifth, smart and flexible workplace. Sixth, public service ethics system. First, we have been driving the balanced personnel management in appointment. For gender equality, we set a rule that the percentage of a particular gender of successful candidates who pass each recruitment exam should not be below 30%. Currently, women public officials take up almost 50% in the central government. Especially, we have a goal that women take up 10% of the senior civil service by 2022. We also consider it is very important that the affirmative action for socially disadvantaged groups, including disabled, talented people in the countryside, and those who are in the low-income bracket. For them, we set the quota system in recruitment exam or run a special recruitment exam, which requires certain qualification. For disabled, over 6% of total position of open competition recruitment exam for grade 7 and 9 is filled by the disabled. And especially for the severe disability people, there is a special recruitment channel. For low-income people, those who earn less than 50% of median income of all households took up 2.7% of recruitment exam for grade 9. Also, we have the quota and special exam for the local talent. Second innovation case is the recommended recruitment by the people. This is established with two goals. One is discovering new talent more broadly. The other is enhancing citizens' participation to appointment of public officials. Any Korean national who possesses expertise can be recommended. The positions for recommendations are public officials in political service, such as ministers, vice ministers, and open positions at the director level and above that requires specialist candidates with specific qualifications. And head and executive officers of public institutions also can be recommended. If a talent is recommended by citizens, we verify through procedures such as information verification and review of suitability based on related laws and regulations. Third innovation case is competency assessment in promotion. This slide shows you the overview of the promotion system of general officials. Promotion to the position of grade 5 and below is usually done by the promotion screening, which is mainly based on the performance evaluation. But to promote to the position of director and above, people have to pass the competency assessment. For your further understanding, I want to note the concept of competency. Competency is a person's behavior or attitude required for successful performance of one's duty in order to achieve an organization's goal. Assessment Center was introduced along with the launch of the Senior Civil Service in 2006 with the aim of appointing the right people to the right positions through a prior objective evaluation of the abilities and qualifications required of senior civil service. The assessment center is conducted in a simulated situation that includes possible conflict likely to occur in a real-life work situation with multiple appraisers' observation. Director Competency Assessment Center was designed in 2009, implemented in 2010, and mandatory in 2015. As the Senior Civil Service Assessment, 6 competencies are assessed by 4 exercises such as role play, investigate exercise, and group discussion. And as a Director Competency Assessment, 6 competencies are assessed by 4 exercises as well. The Senior Civil Service competencies focus on strategic thinking and strong commitment to the public service, whereas the Director competencies put more emphasis on policy implementation and team management skills. Let's move on to the fourth innovation case, which is the specialist public official system. Usually, the public officials of Korean government rotate their position with mandatory appointment period. Job rotation is useful to foster officials who have a mind of wide scope, but for some positions need a high-level expertise and long-term service. So the specialist public official system was implemented in 2016. It is the personal management system of designating specialized areas with high performance, high importance and public demand that the public officials could not accumulate expertise due to job rotation. And it enables these designated public officials to work and be promoted in one special area throughout their career. The examples of selected specialized areas are international trade, South-North talks, disaster management, and environmental health. As you can see in this slide, the ranks of the specialist public officials are more simple than that of the general officials. The fifth innovation case is smart and flexible working condition. The background of the working condition innovation is the practice of overworking in Korean workplaces. In average, a Korean worker overworks 2,069 hours per 1 year, which is the second highest among OECD countries. The first highest country is Mexico, 2,255 hours per 1 year. And overworking causes the decrease of efficiency, low birth rate, and dangers to health. So we are trying to enhance the variety flexible work schedules. The regular work schedule in Korean government is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. But a worker can control their hour for reporting and living. Also, we have implemented smart work environment by mobile electronic approval system and constructed smart work centers so that people can work even while they are business trips. And considering the importance of work and life balance, we are improving the leave system. The last innovation case is the public service ethics system. To build a transparent and trusted government, we have the Public Service Ethics Act. Based on the Public Service Ethics Act, there are 4 ethics systems. First, registration and disclosure of properties. I'm going to give you more details about this in the next slide. Second, restriction on post-employment and certain activities which can cause conflict between public and private interest. Third, report on gift. Gift exceeding $100 in value from foreign agencies should be reported and it is reverted to the National Treasury. Fourth, sell or blind trust of stocks. If officials of high-ranking positions such as grade 1 and above have some stocks that can cause the conflict between public and private interest, they should sell or place them in a blind trust so that they cannot exercise their influence on the value of the stocks. I'm going to give you more details about registration and disclosure of properties. Mainly those who have duties to register their properties are grade 4 and above. Disclosure to the public are grade 1 and political appointees. But some officials of grade 5 to 7 who are in charge of permission, tax service, audit, etc. also should register their properties. The scope of registration covers almost all kinds of properties such as real estate, cash, deposit, stocks, and gold, etc. We have developed a web-based system called the Public Ethics Total Information System for the registration of properties since 1999. Since it had been developed a long time ago, it is somewhat inconvenient for users. So now we are driving the reform of this system to improve the convenience of users this year. After the officials have completed their property registration, we review them if there is a false or illegality. While this verification process, we use the received data from the financial institutions and public organizations. And we analyze the property fluctuations, investigate whether the declarations are true or not. If we found a case which is doubt or for illegal accumulation of properties, then we request for the Ministry of Justice on the investigation. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Finalmente, vamos a tener la presentación del profesor Shin Kim del Instituto Coreano de Administración Pública. Estamos muy complacidos de tener al profesor acá porque con el ICAP estamos a punto de firmar un MOU con KIPA, que es el Instituto Coreano de Administración Pública, que nos va a permitir tener un trabajo conjunto a partir de la segunda parte del año. Así que, profesor.
Okay, I can use this one. I'm just checking this. You're going move forward this way. Maybe this one. Oh, okay, I got it. Good morning. How are you? My name is Shin Kim. I'm the Senior Research Fellow at the Korea Institute of Public Administration. Well, this is my first visit to Panama. Before I get here, all I know about Panama is, guess what? That's right, Panama Canal. Yesterday I went there, I checked that, I was just amazed. It shows how much effort and how much energy you put into your canal. Well, I'm very happy to be here, and the Panamanian peoples are so friendly. Actually, your city, Panama City, also looks very good. You know, the gentleman from your, I think, Office of the President, Mr. Escobar, actually, he was around there. He's gone now. I met him at the airport, and he gave me a ride to a hotel. And on the way to hotel, he asked me, how do you think about the Panama City? No, I said, what? It looks like Miami. Really? I mean, maybe it's much better than Miami. It looks to me, you have a nice beach, high-rise buildings, all right there. I don't know whether it runs like Miami. But I think you have a beautiful city anyway. Well, I realized this morning, I look at this, the things in Spanish, and it says 19th Forum, right? And you have forum every other year, so it's about almost 40 years, right? Is that right? Mm-hmm. And 40 years, you've been doing this. I was amazed. 40 years ago, it's about late 1970s. That's the time, after all those heydays in the America, 60s and, 70s, everybody's struggled. Economically, even in the United States, they struggle with the stagflation. At the end of 1970s, probably some of you know, the New York City went bankrupt. You know that? That's the crisis, not just the America. In early 1980s, in the UK had IMF bailout. You remember that? That's why that time has the President Reagan became president, and in the UK, who became the Prime Minister? That's right, Margaret Thatcher. You know what they what they done at that time, they tried to cut the government. Government is too big. Government is so inefficient. They are corrupt. So small is better. That was the, at late 1970s and early 1980s. That's the beginning of the era of public reform. Public reform is not it's not an option. It's a mandate. People are demanding more services, more performance. And the resources for government is getting more scarce. You have less money, you have more demand. That was the biggest challenge for the public sector. That's why we had the public reform and public innovation since that late 1970s. In Korea, we are so lucky that during 1970s is kind of the era of economic development. Somehow we escaped all those crises in the more advanced countries. But then, late 1990s, we faced a real crisis in Korea. Basically, our finance were broke. We asked money to IMF. Same situation like the UK. Almost 20 years ago. So here, what I'm here talk about regulatory reform in Korea. Before 1997, when we had the IMF bailout, things so nice. Economies grows, and Korea is getting more like a rich countries, but suddenly we had a financial crisis. So Korea before 1997, after 1997 is totally different country. Probably, I think, Panama is economically a very strong country, right? I think your per capita income is like $15,000, right? So it's the best in this region. So you are kind of, you're out of developing countries. You try to become a more advanced. And here, I think some other people from the Central America, some other countries, you are still struggling. But in Korea, we had a good economy, but suddenly it collapsed. The first thing we did, we had then President Kim Dae-jung. He became the president in the middle of that crisis. The first thing he did is the regulatory reform. Since 1998, well, before that, it's like, we try to just improve the, by case, the procedures and formalities of regulations like that. I'm not sure the situations in Central America here, but after 1997, we start tackling on the government regulations. And we had a new legislation called Basic Act on Administrative Regulations. That's the backbone of the regulatory reform in Korea. And with that, we start systematic reform in the regulatory area. And 20 minutes is very short to just explain all the details of what we've done almost the last 20 years. But I'll give you the essence of it. And well, let's talk about the framework. You have, if you want to do something, you have to have a basic framework. And the law I mentioned, the Basic Act on the Administrative Regulation, provide backbone for the regulatory reform. Well, it has all the basic principles and purpose like normal legislations. Well, I'll tell you just one thing. There's so many things in the Act. We form a organization called Regulatory Reform Committee, RRC. And this is the basic structure. Regulatory Reform Committee is under the President, the office of the President. And this is the presidential level. And here, at the Prime Minister's level, we have Office of Government Policy Coordination. Within that office, there's the Deputy Minister for Regulatory Reform. So the Deputy Minister is helping the Regulatory Reform Committee conduct the regulatory reform in Korea. And for each ministries, we all have Office of Regulatory Reform and Legal Affairs. So all the ministry has the same the office. And for the local government, here's under Ministry of Interior, they all have the very similar office for the local regulatory reform, like the local ordinances and the laws like that. So we have like a basic scheme like this. And one thing here I like to mention is the Regulatory Reform Committee is very unique. It's not like the American system, UK system, It's the first kind of the, I call it probably innovation in the regulatory reform area. The chairman of that Regulatory Reform Committee is Prime Minister. And there's another chairman, co-chairman. That co-chairman is from the private sector. And we have 6 government members. They are mostly ministers. And 14 civilian members. Think about the structure. Do you have within government dealing with the very, very important matters? There's co-chairman from civilian, and more members are from the private sectors. Why we structure the Regulatory Reform Committee like that? Here, I think most of you are working at the public sectors, right? Public officials, I believe. And for a lot of them, what you're doing is you are implementing you are enforcing regulations. Regulation is what? That's your work. That's your job. And at the beginning, regulatory reform tried to remove the regulations. And people says, the official said, hey, this is my job. This is my work. Sometimes it's the source of my power. And very rarely is maybe make some money too. If let public officials do the regulatory reform, it's not going to work. Never, ever. We thought in Korea, you're not going to remove your own, source of your powers and authorities like that. That's why we bring regulatees, not the regulators. Regulators, I never seen any regulators that voluntarily removed their regulations. They have tons of reasons why we need this regulation. This is the unique approach in Korea that let private sectors govern the regulatory reform area. Well, basic function of the regulatory reform committee is, it reviews the new regulations. And also, if you try to strengthening the existing regulations, then you have to go through the review process. So, not just the new regulations, we're dealing with the existing regulations. Also, we have a comprehensive regulatory reform plan. Every year, each ministries and agencies, they're supposed to have comprehensive regulatory reform plan, which must be approved by the regulatory reform committee. Then they're going to implement it whole year. At the end of that year, we evaluate it, whether they done their work correctly. That's the system. If you don't do your work correctly, the long time, more than 10 years ago, the evaluation is so prevalent in Korean government. We try to evaluate everything government do. So someone, in Korea says, Korea is not a Republic of Korea, it's like a Republic of evaluation. Too many evaluations. And that was kind of the government arm, the instrument to motivate public officials and try to move and drive the public officials forward. We don't do that much evaluation nowadays, but more than 10 years ago, everything was evaluated. And based on the results of the evaluation, you could go home, your ministers, just out of his office. Nowadays, we don't do that. I mean, more softly, but sometimes we kind of had a shock approach. Public officials, you talk about government reforms and government innovations, you pretend to do it, but actually not doing anything. Why are you going to change it? Your job is guaranteed until your retirement. You get promoted at certain years of experience, and you have all the powers and prestiges. Why you want to change it? If I'm not a public official, I'm the researchers. If I'm a public official, I'm not going to change it anyway. You like just pretend you're doing something, but actually your business is as usual. In that case, just spending time and your monies and resources in public, in any kinds of reform is just waste of your valuable resources. Well, this is the kind of phase of the regulatory reform in OECD countries from 3 phases. At the bottom, we have, sorry, I just page probably, well, this part I'm going to explain over here. You know, at the bottom it says deregulation. That means basically you just get rid of the regulations. That's what happened in the late 1970s and early 1980s in the UK, US, and many advanced countries. They started it. In Korea, you know, I mentioned President Kim Dae-jung. When he became a president, you know, in his office, he put a big board on the wall. And for each ministries and agencies, how many government regulations they have, we try to find out how many regulations we have. Probably in here in Central America, to my knowledge, no government knows exactly how many regulations you have. And very up to recently, even the more advanced countries, they don't know what they're dealing with. And we just identified all the government regulations at the time of his administration. And he put the numbers and he checked the progress. You have to get rid of it. And after 1 year or so, almost 50% of government regulations removed or improved. That was the deregulation. You just get rid of the regulations, the burdensome, unnecessary, out of date. To do that, you have to know what kind of, how many, what type of regulations you have. But the task of identification of government regulation itself is the huge, enormous work. And the second, over here, 5 minutes, okay, that's exactly. Okay. That's all I need, 5 minutes. Probably I might need less than that. Well, the second stage, let's say you remove all the unnecessary regulations. Now, you have the regulations you really need. You need the regulations to protect your people's health, to protect your environment, and to have a fair competition in the market, things like that. Now, you can regulate it, but do it wisely. That's why we call it better regulation in UK and smart regulation in the US and Canada. So when you regulate it, you have to wisely. To do that, you have to use some kind of the techniques. The main technique is the regulatory reform analysis, call it RIA. You calculate before you implement the regulation, how much cost the regulation will bring to the society, or how much benefit we'll get it. And if the cost is higher than the benefit, you don't need that regulation. And there's some other tools like try to find alternatives to regulations, and you consult with your people, like public consultation. Many tools and techniques at the second stages. Anyway. And the third phase, called regulatory management, basically at this level, not many countries are dealing with that. At that stage, you don't deal with individual regulations, you're dealing with the whole regulatory system. So, well, it's like, the benefits of having a government regulatory system compared to the cost is higher, then you must do something about it. Many countries, what they're doing is, like a UK, if you, early, I think 2010, if you make one regulation, you have to get rid of one. Now they had, if you have one, you have to remove two. Now, three. You know, last year when President became the President of the United States, he said, from now on, when you make new regulation, you have to get rid of at least two regulations comparable to the regulations you try to make. That's the system. You try to have a kind of the total, the maximum amount of regulations you are allowing in the whole the government. I think these are the explanation. Our Korean approach is known as the guillotine approach. Just get rid of 50% of government regulations. That is almost unheard of before. And the regulatory reform impact analysis. Here, I mentioned. Here, UK, 1 in, 2, 3 out. Korea, we call it cost in, cost out. We try to, government regulation costs a lot of money. And if you bring more cost to government, you have to get rid of existing costs. That's basically the managing the whole government regulatory system. I think I have just 1 minute, right? Okay. Well, to finalize my presentation, you have to have some basic legal foundation to do this. Believe me, regulating government regulation is almost impossible. No, because of the nature of regulation. No, I mentioned, why you get rid of, this is my work. That's the attitude of most of public officials. So you need sound legal base, and also you have to have management systems. And here, I think you have to improve continuously. We are doing through the evaluation. Well, I guess my time is almost up. And I don't know much about the Panama or in the Central America, but I think the Korean experience might give you a little bit of a hint what you have to do in the area of the regulatory reform. Well, that's all my presentation, and thanks for listening, and gracias.
Thank you very much, Professor Kim, for such a comprehensive presentation about the regulatory reform in Korea. Ahora vamos a tener la sección de preguntas. Básicamente estamos un poquito limitados de tiempo, como ha sido un poco la dinámica, pero tenemos un espacio. Desde luego las preguntas las pueden hacer en español y vamos a tener la asistencia para que nos ayuden a traducir en caso necesario. Así que podemos tomar unos minutos, y si tenemos también en el app, la vamos a traer. Por el momento, tal vez reiterar un poco lo que se señalaba al inicio de la jornada del día de ayer y que hoy la hemos visto con las presentaciones. La innovación no sucede en el vacío. La innovación sucede y tiene éxito en un contexto, y ese contexto es el institucional. La primera presentación, bueno, todas las presentaciones, pero particularmente la primera presentación y la del doctor Kim con la narrativa de las reformas del sistema regulatorio en Corea, apuntan a que mucho del éxito de la innovación radica precisamente en ese apoyo y soporte institucional. Y cuando ayer incluso hablábamos de los ODS y la pregunta final que hacía Gregorio sobre cuáles son los principales desafíos en la implementación de los ODS, se hablaba un poco del tema económico, pero más allende del tema económico hay una cuestión institucional. Creo que doña Olga lo señalaba ayer, efectivamente, el tema de la gestión, que es un tema obviamente que tiene que ver con la cuestión institucional. En la primera presentación también, cuando se hablaba de los factores de éxito, desde luego tenía que ver con el tema del apoyo institucional, el tema de la asignación de recursos financieros y una cuestión muy importante, que es el apoyo político, porque en las tres presentaciones se ve claramente que el tema de la innovación, gracias señor Paul, el tema de la innovación es una de las prioridades top en la agenda en Corea. Y entonces eso es garantía de alguna manera del éxito que se ha tenido. Vamos a ver. Tenemos, vamos a ver, pregunta de Javier Arias. Vamos a tomar una pregunta quizás que estaba leyéndola para tomar una que tal vez que nos sirva para los tres panelistas. There is one question that perhaps, you can take it, all of you. You can use like a couple of minutes to answer that question. Basically, it refers to the following issue. It says, understanding the Korean culture is different than the Latin American culture. What would you recommend to the Central American countries in terms of how to initiate the process of innovation in the region, in Central America, based on the Korean experience? What will be the recommendations that you give us to develop a strategy of innovation for the region, for Central America?
I understand that the question is how the Central America how can you initiate the government innovation, because it has different cultural and social background compared to Korea. Is that right? I think to be anything, including innovation, to be successful, there should be a strong will of those who is in charge of that, and also there should be participation of the person and organizations who will be affected by the innovation. So for that, I think we should provide the vision. What will change? What will be improved through the innovation? Again, then those people included, those stakeholders should really feel the importance of innovation, and they feel it is necessary. The way to make them feel it is necessary is your role. I think the reason that Korean government was able to produce positive results was that the efforts of innovation didn't stop since the government was established. And people were at first very hard stage of living, and they believed the governments, and they followed and participated in the innovation. That's why we could make a positive result.
As my presentation was about public personal management, so I'd like to mention about public personal management. I don't know much about the public personal management system in Panama, but I'd like to highlight 2 points. That is, one point is we have to hire right people to the right people, which means right people who have a right competency to certain positions. In the South Korea past days, we focused on hire the best person, which means who is smart and graduated best college or so. But it is not the right way to improve the competence of whole government. So nowadays we are trying to hire the right people and balanced personal management, gender equality. So I'd like to recommend that point. And second point is we have to try to make a trustful public officials. That I think it is important that make trusted government, and it is very important the role of the public officials to make the trusted government. So we have to make policies for transparency or anti-corruption, and I think that is a very important point.
Well, I not sure whether I can give you a proper recommendations, since I don't know much about your cultures and the political environment and the things like that. But in general, I've been working with many countries around the world. I used to went to the OECD meeting regularly. And nowadays, I don't go to OECD meeting anymore, and instead I work with the many developing countries in the Southeast Asian countries, and some African countries, but don't know much about the Central and the Latin America. But over the years, I found the basic difference between the more developed countries and not so those countries are the capacity of the public sector. Probably in this room you all know what you're supposed to do. I mean, basically we know the knowledge is out there. Nowadays, if you click just several times, you can get the information and knowledge you need. Now, one of my the professors, when I was a student in the U.S., I met after completing my studies, and what he said is, the information you have is exactly the same as the information of the professor at Harvard University. There's no difference. But the performance and probably the results could be a huge difference. And that is the different capacities they have. And we try to narrow the gap. I've seen many developing countries, you have a beautiful plan, but you never implement it. But I know you want to implement it, but you don't have capacity to implement it. So I guess this is not just to Central America, to all the countries still struggling, including Korea. Unless you develop the capacity to implement whatever you want, just planning and talk about it, you cannot move forward. But you cannot develop your capacity in a day. It takes a long time and a lot of resources, a lot of efforts. But to move forward, you have to start building very small things at one time. You cannot achieve what other countries, with the more advanced countries, achieved over many years. Think about the U.S. or some other countries. It takes a long time to become like this. No, I don't recommend the American way to do it, but for Koreans, we are the poorest countries in the whole world. After the Korean War, we have nothing but ashes. It took almost 50 years to become like current status. So you have to have a long-term plan, and you have to build incrementally. You cannot achieve everything overnight. And improving the capacities of public sector is the critical factor to move forward. That's my comments.
Muy bien, bueno, un poco las respuestas están dentro de una defensa casi del neoinstitucionalismo, ¿verdad? Para los que estudian un poco teoría política. Pero bueno, vamos a finalizar acá, vamos a dejarlo hasta acá. Yo les pido un aplauso, por favor, para los panelistas. Muchísimas gracias de verdad, y vamos a proceder a entregarles sus certificados y un pequeño reconocimiento.
Buenas. Hola, ahora sí, gracias. Así es, agradecemos la participación de los panelistas y llamamos al honorable señor David Montenegro para que haga entrega de certificados de agradecimiento y reconocimientos a las autoridades del segundo panel. Bien, damos inicio inmediatamente con Su Excelencia Bak Sang-hun, embajador de la República de Corea. Doctor Kim Hyun-hun. Doctora Kim Nam-ok. Doctor Shin Kim. Les invitamos ahora a devolver los auriculares a la mesa de registro que está ubicada a la entrada del salón. Mientras tanto, anunciamos entonces un breve receso de 20 minutos en el salón contiguo que se estará sirviendo el refrigerio.